Welcome. Thank you all for joining us for today's Art Break. Before we begin, I'd like to take a quick moment to let you know about a new program that we are starting at the KIA that I hope you will all join us for. So this is going to be starting next month. It's a program called Gallery Gatherings, and we have flyers over here on the table. If you didn't grab one on your way in, please grab one on your way out, or grab two. So gallery gatherings are going to be short, lightly moderated conversations about selected artworks from our ongoing exhibitions. So this is just a short 30-minute program that'll take place from 5:30 to 6 p.m. And the program is designed to just bring people together and have you to engage in close observation of selected works of art, and discuss them with one another, learn from one another. And these programs will be lightly moderated by members of the Kalamazoo Institute of Arts community. So whether that's staff members or docents, or other folks from our community. Those are going to be that's going to be a monthly program, and it is free to attend with the cost of admission to the galleries. So our first will be on Thursday, September 5th from 5:30 to 6. And we will be discussing Fritz Scholder's diptych, which is an amazing piece on loan to us right now from Art Bridges. And it is on view in our lower level galleries already. So definitely encourage you to check that out and to come and chat about it more. This particular gallery gathering is going to be led by our docents Scott Peterson and Kathy Gadwood. So I hope you'll join us for that one. And then in October, we have another based on two artworks that are going to be paired together in the exhibition Legendary Voices. And these are Heart of the Andes by Robert Selden Duncanson and Right of Way by Jerry Kearns. And so this is going to be led by Jim Carter and Michelle Tombrow Tracy. So both of these are going to be really fun discussions. I hope you will join us for both of those. Again, please feel free to grab some flyers on your way out. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce today's Art Break speaker, Rebecca Rupe. Rebecca is the Archives Collections Coordinator for the Gun Lake Tribe. She began her career with the tribe in the spring of 2021. In addition to assisting in establishing tribal archives and collections, Rupe has also worked with the tribe in the areas of programming, digital archive website development, community collaboration and outreach, and exhibitions, including the Kalamazoo Nature Center's recent Roots of Wisdom exhibition. She has a bachelor's in travel tourism and anthropology from Western Michigan University, and she's currently completing her graduate certificate in cultural and environmental heritage management and her MA in public history through her undergraduate institution. So we are thrilled to have her here today to discuss her work with the Tribal Historic Preservation Office. Please join me in welcoming Rebecca Rupe.
Thank you, Miriam. Buju, Minogijik, Nanushikikwa, Indigenikas, Rebecca, Indigenikas, Kalamazoo, and Dunjaba, Grand Traverse Band, Odawa, Bodawatomi, Mikanek, Nindotum. So I just said hello, good afternoon now. My name is Rebecca. I'm enrolled Grand Traverse Band Odawa with my mother's side. My father is a citizen of the Gun Lake Tribe, Bodawatomi, which is Potawatomi in the language. I come from Kalamazoo now. I was born in Awashtenong, which is Grand Rapids, and I'm Turtle Clan, Snapping Turtle Clan to be precise. So good to meet you. I'm glad to be here. Bear with me as I try to breathe through a baby here. But as Miriam said, I work as the Archives Collections Coordinator for the Tribal Historic Preservation Office with the Matchipineshiwish Band of Potawatomi Indians. They're located in present-day Shelbyville, Michigan, and I'm within the Tribal Historic Preservation Office. So the Tribal Historic Preservation Office, we petitioned for taking our rights back from SHPA, which is the State Historic Preservation Office that's set up to kind of oversee our cultural resources. So up there, the Tribal Historic Preservation Office mission statement, it exercises oversight to ensure the preservation, protection, curation, repatriation, and management of the ancestors, sacred objects, archives, archaeological sites, and historic and traditional cultural properties, which are normally referred to as TCPs, that are significant to the Matchup-Benashewish Band of Potawatomi Indians. So in 2019, the current TIPO officer began up there. Her name is Lakota Hobai. And then shortly after that, a cultural resource management specialist, a research specialist, and the previous archives collections coordinator began shortly after about 2020, before the pandemic had shut down government campuses. So archives and collections began right at 2020, and I began in 2021. And we've got a collections and exhibitions committee, so an advisory committee that's made up of citizens with varying backgrounds. So that we have some artists, we have some past museum directors, we've got management and casino people on our team. So we came up with a program vision for the archives and collections, and we made our own collections management policy for our collections program. And it's the TIPO Department Archives Collections Program seeks to promote and sustain community wellness through Potawatomi worldviews, values, beliefs, and doings. The Archives Collections Program shall strive to preserve the material culture and history of the Gun Lake tribe and to promote a greater awareness of the rich cultural legacy of the Nishnabek of the Great Lakes region, actively and holistically. The acquisition, exhibition, and care of culturally affiliated and historically significant materials pertaining to the Gun Lake tribe, and providing opportunities for education and engagement of the community, the Potawatomi relatives, and other Nishnabek communities, and the public at large. So with this, we really wanted to encompass all Potawatomi that had been removed from Michigan as well. So in the 30s, when the Indian Removal Act was there, a lot of our sister and brother communities were relocated outside to Kansas and Oklahoma, as well as one tribe down in Mexico that had treated, so in Canada and Mexico, those tribes treated with the chiefs down there and sought refuge. So we've got Kickapoo tribes and quite a bit of relatives in Canada as well. So as the Archives Collections Coordinator, my main priorities that I try to focus on are the stewardship of the tribal archives and collections, our collaboration and presentation requests, donations and acquisitions, and NAGPRA. So I'm one of three NAGPRA reps for our tribe. Stewardship of the tribal archives and collections. So when I began in 2021, there was no established collection. So everything that the tribe had collected over the last 3 to 4 decades hadn't technically been brought in. There's no provenience, no files. I had to kind of work through all of this artwork and determine if they were employee bought or tribally bought, if they needed to go into the collection. And then from there, we got an intern that helped kind of start those accession records. And then working with elders and traditional knowledge holders to come up with cultural care practices for those objects. So currently, there's 875 physical materials in the collection. We do have an online database that we work with Mukatu, so it's an indigenous-led digital archiving database that we use. Archives is currently being established, so that's our next project, is to get the archives up to date. And we audit routinely at 4 different Gun Lake properties. So we've got the casino, we've got GJOC, Luella Collins, and the casino, because the casino has quite a bit of 3D materials. We do some preservation planning. When I came in 2021, if you go to the admin building, there's a citizen basket display that had been up for quite a few years, and several of the baskets you'll see on one of the slides had suffered a severe sun damage. So we right away started getting those rotated out, and we work with the CCAHA, which is the Conservation Center for Art and Historic Artifacts, and preservation planning now. So we did get some UV film up you'll see another one of those pictures to start protecting those baskets. The accession files that was completed this summer by our amazing intern. He digitized over 10,000 documents, organized and filed them for the 875 materials that we have so far. And then cultural care practices, again, every item gets its own cultural care practices. So with our baskets, because we have a large black ash basket, we have several families that make those baskets. Depending on, family traditions, we'll do water baths, snow baths, rain baths. It horrifies museum people when we do those or when we recommend those. But again, it's, dependent on the family and the intention in those baskets. Sometimes we're not preserving things have a beginning and an end for us. So we do go through and smudge our small archival storage room occasionally, and we do seasonal rotations depending on what can come out during certain times of the year. Yes.
Could you explain smudging?
Smudging. So I have our cultural coordinator come down and she'll smudge, or one of our elders, our Ogichida, will come and smudge the area. They use sage, and he'll just use like an abalone shell in a fan and come smudge everything. So this was one of the first baskets I pulled down. If you will notice, the left side was pointed towards the admin building, so the back side was hidden along the wall. This is a pigeon family basket. They're very well known throughout the world probably with their basket making stuff. So I did get with the grandmother on potential ways to save this basket. However, the only way to do that would be to deconstruct, re-dye, and then do this again. So for them, they opted to not do that. They're still a living family with those traditions passed down to the grandchildren. So we do have new baskets in, but this one is in our storage room for now. That is our intern. He curates our, so that's the admin one, citizen display. As you can see, there are these great big windows shining directly on what is our Neme fish tank, so sturgeon. And then citizens make those baskets that we've collected. So annually now, he brings those down, condition reports those, and then recurates that area, pulling down anything that might be critical. The windows, the top half now have a UV filtration on them. We were awarded an IMLS enhancement grant last year to start working on some underdeveloped, underutilized exhibition spaces. Yes.
Where is this?
The government campuses are located in Shelbyville, Michigan, so they're right across from the casino. Yep.
I drove from Shelbyville yesterday.
Oh, yep. So it's right off to the, I have the address if you would like it, but yep, right across from the casino. Collaboration and presentation requests. So we do get quite a bit. Because archives and collections is fairly new, a lot of those requests and presentations kind of end up in other departments, and those departments will reach out to us now to get those coordinated, because we do like a questionnaire form to make sure we're doing background research on institutions. So currently we have 11 ongoing collaborations. Those range anywhere from exhibitions, large and small. So we worked with the Field Museum before. We just got done with the Kalamazoo Nature Center for a smaller exhibit. Loans we do quite frequently, and programming. So we've been up to a couple of the schools in like Moline and Wayland area to help with some programming. Presentations, we have 6 ongoing right now. And those range from workshops at lots of conferences. We'll get requests to put on a workshop to help with whatever those specific topics are. We attend ATOM. MMA is being hosted here in Kalamazoo this year, so it's the Michigan Museum Association. Presenting, so like here, we present on not just our department, but we can do tribal histories. We can work with several other departments to kind of coordinate how a presentation wants to be, as well as panels. So our process when we go through those requests is to send like a blank questionnaire, and it's really to get information on the institution to make sure that they're an appropriate partner with ethics. So funding sources, we look at what's funding projects, what's funding those backgrounds, and we're looking for those conflicts of interest. NAGPRA compliance is probably the biggest one that we look for, and that's what I do my research on an institution, is to ensure that there's not ancestors or culturally affiliated objects at an institution. And if there are, they're at least in good faith efforts consulting with tribes to get those home. So this is our collaborations. On the left there is the Roots of Wisdom at Kalamazoo Nature Center. And on the right is the opening for Native Truths at the Field Museum. We're currently working with the Grand Rapids Public Museum, Kalamazoo Valley Museum, the Field Museum, the Detroit Institute of Art, MDNR for Strait State Park. They're doing a Father Marquette update at the park up there. Kalamazoo Nature Center, Michigan History Center, the Allegan Historical Society, Tri-Cities Historical Museum, Cahokia. So it's not just in Michigan, we work outside of Michigan in ancestral territories as well. And then the University of Michigan Penny Stamps Gallery for a loan. With collaboration, we also do cultural care. So I can work with an institution to help update those collections management policies. A lot of times those collections management policies won't have Indigenous voices in them. They'll have museum best care standards. And sometimes museum best standards aren't what tribal people want for their objects. So again, like seasonal, if families don't want things out seasonally, or gender roles, things like that, I can work with an institution on making sure they're complying with artist and family wishes. And if they don't know, then we can work with traditional elders on establishing the appropriate protocols for those. Access and use, their scopes, collecting scopes for sure, just because a lot of things came from the 80s. And those practices are a bit outdated. Display and exhibition, we do traditional TK labels, is what we call them. And we'll usually do those in the language of the tribe. So if it's Odawa or Potawatomi for us, that's what we'll work with those institutions to make sure that's the top language preference, with then English and Spanish below. And then curation. So what's appropriate with what materials? Some baskets don't need to be with tobaccos or pottery. It just depends on what the materials are. Yes. NAGPRA stands for the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. Yes. And I'll get into that again in a minute too. It's a big component. This is our presentation. So we do have a table that we bring out. That is Neville the Neme. He's our big 7-foot sturgeon that we chart our citizens' height on. So the youth come out every year for a back to school event. And we get to chart their things. We've got some stuff on the left that was at the Field Museum. That's a sturgeon basket, along with what's on display at the exhibit. Presentations currently, obviously I'm here, KIA. University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. I did a NAGPRA presentation. Indianapolis Airport, Moline Elementary School, the Allegan Public Library is coming up in October. And then we finished the Southwestern Michigan Garden Club that was hosted at Kalamazoo Nature Center. So because we're at capacity, we don't really seek out a lot of donations and acquisitions. My storage room is probably 10 feet by 10 feet right now. It's not a lot. So we'll still accept things that are relevant and within our scope, but we're not actively seeking things out at the moment. On the left is Beth Bush. That's her Bradley Settlement bandolier bag. We did just get that because while we do have a lot of baskets in the collection, it is identified that we don't have a whole lot of beadwork. So Beth Bush comes from Bradley Settlement. She's in Old Pokagon. She's a phenomenal beadwork and quill work. There's quill at the top. You can't see it in this picture. And then on the right-hand side is a Gladys Sands basket that was found at an antique shop in Traverse City, Michigan. And Gladys Sands is a well-known basket maker from about the 70s, 60s, 70s as well. So we did bring those in because we did not have a Gladys Sands basket in the collection, as well as we didn't have a Bush beadwork piece. But we do accept donations. So the Native American Graves and Repatriation Act. So I pulled this from NPS. There is quite a bit of verbiage on there. If anyone knows, the regulations just went through an update. So new this year are several changes to the regulations. This law happened in 1990. And kind of giving, we'll go into some history here. So in 1795, Chief Mashupanashuish, who is the descendant for the tribe, comes from Mackinac. He was born in the Mackinac area. As we didn't really settle anywhere, we moved throughout. He was one of the signatories on the 1795 Treaty of Greenville. So he was down in Ohio treating with Europeans at that time, and that's when ceded land to the east was. So the first land successions for us was 1795, and then 1821. Many of you probably know that that's when we gave land successions that established the Kalamazoo reservation for the tribe specifically. There was another treaty in 1827, which then took away those reservations and wanted to push all the Indians to Athens on a bigger track over there. And then it kind of moves to the treaties in Chicago, which he did not sign. At that point, we started moving north to kind of evade removal. So in 1830, President Jackson had signed the Indian Removal Act and started moving Indians out west. 1838, Gun Lake Tribe kind of establishes itself in Bradley, Michigan there with that Griswold mission. So they had teamed up kind of like other tribes in Michigan did. So Pokagons had teamed up with Catholic Church down there. We were with, I want to say, maybe a Methodist church. There was a church, the Griswold church, kind of to stay in our areas. So that was in 1838. Let's see. Then we moved to, in 1934, the Reorganization Act kind of takes place, but no tribes in Lower Michigan are able to reorganize under that act, specifically just Lower Michigan Indians for some reason. But then we get into kind of the Religious Freedom Act. So this is where it impacts our art. Not that it didn't before, but it impacts our cultural and traditional ways of life. So the American Indian Religious Freedom Act was in 78. So we were finally able to kind of practice our traditional life ways. The last boarding school in Michigan to close was in 1986. It began in 1829. That's the Holy Childhood Indian boarding school in Harbor Springs. So 2 years before I was born, it closed. In 1994, the Gun Lake tribe started its petitioning for recognition. In 1999, it got recognition. It was finally federally recognized. And then in 1990, you have two acts that were passed. So the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation was passed, but also the Indian Arts and Crafts Act was passed. And that's kind of to help alleviate the misrepresentation of Indian art. So people were making duplicates back in the 80s and 70s. Were trying to sell Indian art as Indian art, but not made by Indian people. They were just collectors getting duplicates. So this is where we come in today with really, a lot of people will call it revitalization. We like to call it reclaiming. So we're reclaiming those traditional life ways. You'll see that in language, our cultural life ways, our food ways, the traditional cultural landscapes and waterways. Art is connected to all of the above. So not only do I work with many departments at the government campus, all of the things that were impacted, art was a way to kind of alleviate that, because so basket makers could still make baskets and pass on those traditions because it was acceptable by Europeans to still buy those. They didn't see it as a life way, I guess. They were like, this is decorative. So Archives Collections Program, these are some events that we have to kind of get our youth and our elders back to those ways of life. So we have some archives and collections open hours now, so our citizens can come in and look at the collection and hopefully give us some stories, which is why we started then the Gathering Community Voices. So we were trying to get our oral histories down from a lot of our elders in the community. Our Language and Culture Department, they're together. We have what's called First Fridays. So on Fridays of every month, artists will come and sell their wares at the government campus. It's during lunch usually, but it's a free space for them to set up a table and just showcase their work. Our cultural coordinator also has what's called Cultural Corner. You'll see that in the upper right-hand side. And it's just based on different topics for the month. So she does regalia. Minoman is our wild rice. She's done powwow etiquette. She'll do anything really, like copper cups, rattle making. She's got beadwork nights, which you'll see there on the bottom right. And then we also have the language coordinator who does classes. So he's got quite a few different kinds of classes. This one's a beginner. He's got an advanced, and he also holds like lunch and learns as well. And if you follow them on Facebook, you'll see what's open to the public. Some of these are. So like our environmental department, the 2024 May celebrations coming up, that is open to the public. They work very hard all year round, kind of trying to repopulate our Neme in the Kalamazoo River specifically. Kalamazoo River has its own genetic codes, I guess, in the sturgeon. So that's pretty exciting. So every year we have a celebration, release the babies back into that park right there, into the Kalamazoo River. This week and next week, we're going to be hosting, or they'll be hosting, we're assisting with we call it a GMON, which is a canoe build. So the kids will be building a canoe for the collection and for utilization. And then they do a lot of the lunch and learns as well. So the next one I think coming up is, or just passed, invasive species. Education department. We've got a librarian. She's great. She just put together a story walk with the kids, and it goes out through the GJOC property. And you can kind of follow those little panels that she puts together for a story walk. She does book club, and then to get kids interested in book club, they do this Come Read With Me for the summer, kind of like any other reading program. We had a back to school event recently where that's got all the departments putting up a table, kind of showcasing to youth what's available for them. And then kind of in with education, we have an elders department, and then we also have a youth department. Both have councils, and they're coming together quite frequently kind of to get those elders. Traditionally, our elders will teach our youth. So it's to give them, although Tech Night is going to be something new. It's where the youth will teach the elders about tech. So I'm looking forward to that one. But traditionally, they'll come in and we'll have oral histories, and they'll just pass down whatever knowledge they have. They do trips together. We have cultural days with the kids. They have a council, and then I think some fundraising because the elders take a trip as well. So, and that's what I got. Yeah. Miigwech, which is thank you, and questions. Does anyone have questions? Yes. Go ahead.
What's the Facebook page?
Gun Lake Tribe. Gun Lake Tribe. Yep, the Facebook page is Gun Lake Tribe. And there might be several, but you'll see the one that's like the official. Yeah.
Is there another access? Facebook, is there a website?
Yes. So if there's access, another access was the question. The other access is a governmental website, which I believe is gunlaketribe-nsn.gov. Yeah, you should be able to, you can Google it too.
And secondly, on the 16th of November, you're having a sturgeon release. Is that on the east or the west side of the bridge?
That's a very good question. I would assume east. So the question was if the sturgeon release was on the east or the west side of the bridge. It's at that park. But traditional me wants to say it would be in the east. So it would be on the east side of, yes, the bridge. We were there last year too. Yeah. I see a question over here. Do we have any connection with Michigan State University? In Curation, or so Michigan State's going through NAGPRA, so we're working with them on their collections to get ancestors and funerary objects back. We haven't worked with them specifically on exhibitions or programming. Yes.
Are you seeing increasing involvement among youth in traditional activities and knowledge of language and other skills with being able to take these activities that you're doing under your own wings and spread out and have more of a presence and bringing it closer to home?
Okay, so the question is if our youth are showing an interest or participating in cultural things?
And more than in the past, are you?
More than in the past?
In preserving and passing on language.
And preserving, okay. So I think now there's an interest. I think with COVID, it had really kind of distanced the ability for us to engage with any tribal citizens, not just our youth. But since then, so maybe for the past year, we've seen an increase in like youth participation at our cultural camps, participation in helping out at our round dance and our annual powwow. And then also helping with like archivists in a backpack. So I think, and we did get a new youth coordinator as well. So, and he's been very active at trying to find engaging things, to get kids interested. And he's seen a rise in kids participating in his after school programs. And then, so last year and this year we did an exhibition, a youth exhibition, and we got more people this year at camp that participated in creating a powwow exhibit for the kids. Preservation, I don't think they're super concerned about preserving right now. I think they're more interested in learning stories, at least. So we kind of have a divide. The little kids just like to do things, and we have a handful, maybe 4 or 5 older kids who are in high school now who are interested in kind of those preserving, honing in on skills, and preserving those teachings. It's really, because we're an oral tradition, we pass things down orally. It's been interesting to kind of see how to get things documented, because that's so vital for us, is getting digital documentation of those traditions passed down. But that's because we have smaller families now too, so most people don't have 8 or 9 kids to pass different traditions down to. There's only me and my brother in my family. So it really comes down to making sure that those smaller families pass down all of that knowledge. I make my kids, so I don't know. They might not like it now, but they will eventually. Yeah. Some of them are interested though. And those are the ones that show up. It's really kind of getting into the families that maybe feel distanced. So for instance, for me, I'm not in Traverse City. I'm located way down here. So participating in my tribal things up in Traverse City is a lot harder unless they make that access easier. So if they do things virtually, and that's kind of where they have to work with elders to see if they're comfortable with virtually, or hosting events during better times. So it's convenient for because a lot of members don't live right here. They're out of state. They're not on trust land. So there's a lot that goes into that. Does that answer that a little bit? Okay. Yes.
The Gladys Sands basket, how do you spell Sands?
How do I spell Sands? Sands.
And what was the basket made out of? And is there did she sign them? I think I might have one. It looked just like that. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering what the identifying factors would be. What is some of the characteristics of her basket?
So the characteristics of a Gladys Sands, and luckily we've got the Martin family because she raised Sid, and then my aunt Shannon and Pumpkin and all of them. But so luckily I can usually take it to them and be like, is this hers? Because she didn't sign. Back in the day, a lot of Native artists didn't sign their work because they didn't want to get in trouble. But for her specifically, she'll write in pencil and she'll do the amount on the bottom. So if it's $3, she'll have 300. $1 is usually a lot that we see. So she sold her baskets for $1 or $3 a lot of the time. So it's just a 1 and a 00. She does it in pencil. So if that stays, we're good to go. But if you've got one, I can totally take a look at it and assess that one. But she primarily made black ash. Yep. And she'll do it right on the bottom. Yeah. Go ahead.
Who's the family who comes to the Allegheny County Fair to construct buildings each year? And they do the black ash.
Our large is the Pigeon family. They do a lot of black ash. So I know John does some. Kelly Church is very well known too, and her daughter Cherish. And the Pigeon family is very big. So we've got like Steve and Kit and then Ed. So their children, Angie, and then their kids. So Damien, the intern, is a Pigeon. So he works with the baskets very well. Church, let's see. We've got Jenny Brown in the community. Technically, she's enrolled Pokagon again, but she is Gun Lake area. Her daughter as well, Jamie Chapman. I don't know which one goes to Allegan, but it's probably one of those. Yeah. I know John comes to Kalamazoo, so I think Kalamazoo Nature Center had John pigeon out last. Yeah. Any more? Yes.
How big is your community?
How many members? I think there's about 700. Yep. I don't actively look at the rolls.
That's in Shelbyville?
That's just enrolled in Gun Lake Tribe, so they could live anywhere. Yep. And they're based on, so tribal enrollment for Gun Lake is based on the 1904 Taggart rolls. So when he came and did the census in 1904. Yes.
Pronounce the name of your tribe.
Matchy-Benashuish. Yep. Gun Lake was the easy one. And he spells it differently too. So you'll see it when he first signs things. It's like Matchy-Benashuish. So there's not the TH. Now it's Matchy-Benashuish. So it changes. You'll see that actually on a lot of tribal members have phonetically made their names easier as they've gone through time.
Is there significance to the name?
Bad bird, fierce bird is Matchy-Benashuish. Yep. So Benashi would be bird. Matchy would be like that fierceness. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that they didn't want to sign things because they would get in trouble.
Yes.
Could you say why? I'm not sure I understand what the full.
So specifically because Gladys, obviously she was making and creating baskets probably in 60s, 70s. That's before the Indian Religious Act. So anything before that, we weren't allowed to talk our language. We weren't allowed to go out and hunt or collect our food. So collecting black ash to make baskets, they had to do in secret. And so that's why you don't see a lot of artist signatures on anything pre-80s, just because they did not want to. They still had to make an income, and people still wanted to buy those things, so they kind of looked, I guess, away, or collectors of Indian artifacts didn't really care. However, they could technically be charged or taken to prison or sent to boarding schools to not do that. Yeah. Yes.
Can you talk about what the 875 different objects are?
Yeah. Yep. So the question was 800. What are the 875 materials in the collection? A majority of that collection are black ash baskets and 2D artwork, specifically paintings. So a lot of the paintings that are at Gun Lake Casino are made by Dave Shananoquit Ba. And a lot of the baskets are from the Pigeon Church, and it's probably mostly Pigeon and Church. So we've got one Gladys basket now. We've got a couple Jenny baskets from Brown. But outside of that, we've got a small collection of arrowheads that I just found in the collection. I don't know where they came from. And seeds. We also do have 244 heirloom seeds that we had cultivated and traded with other tribes prior to me. So when I came in 2021, they had already been accessioned. It was the only accessioned collection that I came to. But there are 244 non-GMO heirloom seeds. Yes.
You mentioned making things more accessible, like this virtual, and you alluded a couple other times to technology. Is there a resistance to using technology?
Is there a resistance? Sorry, the question is if there's a resistance to technology. I don't think there is now with adults and youth, just because we came out of the pandemic, and the only way they could participate during the pandemic and for that first year was virtually. So really no one had a choice at that point. I think the times that we have are just getting our oral histories down, along with documentation. So it's really kind of sitting down with our elders, 80 plus, and working through documentation to see how they want their oral histories kept. So, and we can cater that to just their family. So we'll hold on to it. So it's just, Sprague family or just Bush family. But kind of pressing the importance of how important those are. So we've gone out to like the National Archives. Chicago History Museum has quite a few different documents and oral histories that we were able to pull to kind of show, hey, if we didn't have this, we didn't find it, those stories wouldn't be back in the community. So that's really helped, being able to provide examples, especially like photographs too. So I've gone up to like Grand Rapids. I have to hit Kalamazoo still, and finding those old photos of families to be able to show the families and then share with the families. That way they can see, had this not been documented, we would have lost all of these. So really being able to show, I think, elders that youth are usually fine. It's kind of honing them in so they're not giving away everything to like inappropriately. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think it's kind of interesting around Kalamazoo, like on our street signs, there's the name
Mm-hmm.
that says, the boundaries. That's pretty interesting. So,
Yeah, yep, that was a project that it was before me, I think, right when TIPO was starting. Gun Lake had teamed up with Kalamazoo to get those, that sections off the original 1821 reservation. So it really shows how big that reservation was in 1821. I guess I should say small, because before then we didn't have a reservation, but it was a lot larger than I had anticipated. But yeah, that was a nice project. And I work at WMU sometimes, kind of explaining that how large it was. I know they do a lot of projects out there on like cemetery and GIS research. So yeah, go ahead.
I have a question to oral histories. Is there any very old documentation or even early recordings of the oral histories to see if they have changed as they come down through different groups that spoken of?
So the question is if there's any oral histories that we have that document that change and evolution over time. Not currently, no. But again, we're just kind of starting to reach out to institutions that have those oral histories. The problem that I would foresee with that is because of colonization and assimilation, some of those stories are already, we call it sleeping. So a lot of people don't know about those stories to see if they've changed. We'd have to get that documentation and kind of assess what it's talking about before and we can work with other tribal communities too. So Potawatomi, Odawa, and Ojibwe, they're known as the Three Fires Confederacy. And then Potawatomi just this year have collectively done a Potawatomi Confederacy. So it's really kind of working intertribally as well, because some elders in other, nations and tribes will have knowledge that we don't remember. So it's making sure that we're working together to kind of share what we're doing. And because we're so intertribal, and again, me, for instance, my dad's Potawatomi and Odawa, and my mom's Odawa. So I've got, 3 or 4 different tribes in Michigan that I have family at. So it's kind of coordinating amongst ourselves. So just because something is Potawatomi, it doesn't mean that it's just Gun Lake. It could be Prairie Band out in Kansas. Prairie Band out in Kansas, or Citizen Band in Oklahoma, or Pokagon and HBP over in Athens. It doesn't specifically have to be just one tribe to do that. I don't think anything's really changed story-wise that I can think of. Not yet. Yeah. Other than black ash basket making. So that has had to evolve kind of over time with the emerald ash borer. And I know Kelly gives a fabulous presentation on the impacts that has had. So the black ash basket makers are are starting to kind of utilize or see what they can utilize to create still baskets, but not black ash baskets. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for this presentation. You mentioned the role that you see that art could have in traditional cultural landscapes and waterways. I wonder if you could talk more about that and what kinds of ideas or projects you might have for promoting, I guess, a better understanding of cultural landscapes and waterways.
So the question is, like programming or?
Yeah.
So around our TCPs and waterways. So for us, we're environmental. So again, we're pulling baskets from black ash. We've got monomen. Really, those are life beings for us. So the water is like a brother or sister. The fish, sturgeon, is considered a grandfather, grandmother, kind of like it's a clan. So really just our environmental department has been really good at engaging public, non-native as well. So they'll go out into the community and really work with telling stories that they've worked with the education and elders department with, and getting our stories out there to bring awareness to non-native communities as well. I think they're doing a wild rice one recently with Berry County residents. So they're letting Berry County residents know the importance of monomen and how they can help in that as well. The Kalamazoo Nature Center will also have one panel that's dedicated to like actions that people can do if they want to help restore monomen. Yeah, I think for us mostly it's just, it wouldn't really have to do with me, but in tribal historic preservation, like Lakota and Kayla, who are my partners in that department, they'll work on what's called Section 106, and that's like environmental impacts of development on those tribal lands. So they'll take a look at what a proposed project is and if there will be any impacts to the traditional landscape with that. And then they'll provide their recommendations. Yeah. Is that helpful? Okay. Yes.
Add to that, so some of the local librarians also know about who are the native authors about things in Michigan and can provide resources.
Yes. I know Karen is our librarian at campus, and I know she's been trying to reach out and work with Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo as well on creating like a list of resources. Yeah. Yes.
You showed baby sturgeon being released. Where are those going?
So we've got 7 that stay on campus in that tank that's right by the 7 sturgeon. So we keep 7 babies, and they'll grow up for a year in pristine conditions. So I think, if I have it correct, because we've got a pretty awesome NMA team, they'll keep 7, which is a pretty significant number for us. So it's 7. And they stay in the tank. However, there is like a rearing facility where they keep the others, and they go out and take care of them daily.
I was wondering if the fisheries
They may. I'm not particularly aware of that. There might be a partnership, but
that's where they base
the salmon. It's probably close. It would be Kalamazoo River for sure, because I know they want to acclimate them to the river specifically. But I do know there was like 120-ish just a few years ago, sturgeon in Kalamazoo River, and they've been actively working to up those numbers, because I think it takes like 20 to 25 years for them to mature enough to start repopulating. Yeah, it takes quite a while, so they have to make it a while, but they do it yearly, so they release babies at a year old. Anyone else? I think we're good. Okay. Yes, me what? Hot up here.